Hello and welcome to Lore Watch, a roundtable freeform discussion about lore and our favorite media. I'm your host, Joe Perez, one of several lore-focused folks from Blizzard Watch, and I have got my marvelous co-host with me today, Matt Rossi. How you doing today, Matt?
Shazam.
You know, I was thinking, total random aside, I actually was just reading the comic where Shazam and Superman had an interaction where Superman found out that Shazam was actually Billy, was a kid. It was after,
he was like 12.
It was after Billy's best friend had gotten hurt, and he didn't know how to deal with it. And then Superman's trying to talk to him like an adult, and then Billy powers down and turns into his human form, and Superman loses his mind and then goes and finds the wizard Shazam, and just has like words as a polite way of putting it. I don't know why that popped into my head recently, but I just had to go back and read that comic.
It's actually, I don't remember the writer's name right off the top of my head. It's not Greg Rucka. But it's one of the, most of the time this writer and I don't get along with their work. I don't usually like it. But that Shazam Superman story is actually really good, as long as you know which Superman it is.
Yeah.
It's not the one that was Superboy as a kid. Or it's not the one necessarily who's got his, cousin and, his clone and then his son also all doing Superman stuff. But yeah, it's actually a really good exchange because there's a point in it where he's like, he just walks in and goes, "Have you lost your mind?" And
Judd Winnick.
Like, Judd Winnick, yeah.
Yeah.
Just not usually, and this is nothing personal against him, just that usually the kind of things he writes, and I don't like them. I mean, it's not that he's a bad writer or anything. It's just I am not into his work usually. But that story is really good.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it actually transitions into something we're going to be talking about here, which is there's a lot of emotional impact in that storytelling in that particular set of Superman and Shazam interactions, because you understand, like, Billy has a whole different set of desires because, yeah, he can power up and turn into this like big, powerful hero that is on paper as strong as Superman, if not stronger in some capacity.
They're in the same class. It's absolutely the case.
But he doesn't have the life experience. He doesn't have all the life lessons, and he's still looking at the world through the lens of a kid. It's one of the reasons why I actually like the Shazam live action movies, because they sort of capture that really, really well. But we're going to start today with talking about something that I do think has a lot of emotional impact, and that's going to be the reclaiming of Gilneas storyline in World of Warcraft. So mild spoilers ahead for probably in the next 15, maybe 20 minutes as we talk about it. Matt, have you had a chance to play through it yet, or do you know what happens in it?
I do know what happens. I started it, but I haven't finished it. But I have watched videos and so forth. I know the basic strokes of it. So
what do you think overall? Because this is both factions get a call to arms here. If you're Alliance, you're told that the king is summoning you. The king of Gilneas is summoning you. That Gen Greymane wants to talk with you, and you have a mission to go forth. And if you're doing it from the Horde side, you have one of Lillian Voss's minions. I don't even know what the heck they're called, because they're not truly like Forsaken Death Guard, but they're sort of like her own little shadow agency, kind of like the Forsaken equivalent of SI7.
In the game it says Death Guard Elite.
Yeah, but it's like they're not really the traditional Death Guard, so I don't know if she just took over them.
I think it's basically a situation where basically she didn't ask permission. She's going to ask forgiveness later if she has to. But in the meantime, someone's got to be in charge of these people, so it might as well be me. I've noticed one of the things I like about Lillian Voss, and people are going to be like, he likes a Horde character. I actually like quite a few Horde characters.
Quite a few of them are really well written.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Lillian Voss is the ultra pragmatism.
Yes.
And that they understand that being an ultra pragmatist, being extremely into specific actions that will gain specific results, doesn't make you a mindless murdering monster. She doesn't do things for cruelty's sake. She doesn't do them to antagonize anyone. She simply has goals, and she wants to meet those goals, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to meet those goals. And if that happens to step on someone's toes, oh well. And I like that portrayal of, you could call it lawful neutral in using the D&D alignment chart. Although I don't even think that really works, because I think there's a fierce need in Lillian Voss to have something to belong to. Because remember, she was a very inculcated in the Scarlet Crusade. from like a very early age. Her father trained her to be an assassin from like the time she was barely old enough to walk.
Didn't she wield the blades of the Anointed at one point?
I'm sure she did. Yeah. But that's the thing about Lillian. She just, when she died and became Forsaken, she did not like it. At first, she was like, "No, this can't have happened to me." And it took her a lot to realize, I'm still me in here. And if we thought that they were just all mindless monsters, but I now know that that's not true. And if I can't be who I was going to be, I'll be someone who will do whatever it takes for my people, whoever they are. And if my people are the Forsaken, all right, I now know what they're really like because I am one now. And I think that's why she's taken such an interest in Calia too. The reason she keeps saying, Calia's not in charge. They have a council, but you'll notice that she rides real hard on Calia's shoulder.
Well, what is it she said at one point, which is like a caring hand can help guide through the darkness, something like that. Like she made a quote: "To be raised on death is to forever be haunted by the ghosts of your past. A caring hand can offer comfort through the pain." And Lillian is a character who has a lot of pain, and Calia, she is sort of that compassion incarnate, right? That's a cornerstone of her character when she's been reintroduced to the story and her representation in games. So I think Lillian may be hard pressed to keep Calia safe and look to Calia for direction, because it's sort of almost like regaining parts of her humanity, which she didn't even have when she was with the Scarlet Crusade.
Yeah, one of the things I used when I was talking about it with somebody else, I was mentioning that to me, it's very much like the best Batman Superman stories.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In the best Batman Superman stories, Batman would take a bullet for Superman, knowing it would kill him without question. He would not hesitate to do it. And the reason is he would not hesitate to do it is because he grew up without that hope. And Superman is literally that hope for a better world because he has all this power. And what does he do with it? He tries to help people. And as soon as Batman got that into his head that this guy really is this, he honestly really is that, their relationship immediately changed.
Yeah.
Like he became able to trust someone. If he can trust no one else, you can trust the literal God who doesn't want to be a god, who doesn't want to rule us. His entire purpose is to help and to provide hope and to keep horrible things from happening, but he won't take over the planet. He won't rule us. He doesn't want to. And if anyone, it's that combination. I think it's partially that Lillian realizes Calia doesn't want to be a despot. She doesn't want to control the Forsaken. And yet at the same time, just her existence is a form of hope that we can be more than this. And at the same time, Calia actually gets Lillian's pain. Calia has felt pain like that. Mm-hmm. Calia lost her husband and her child. Calia had to hide in ditches to evade the scourge. She knew she has been the person who hated the undead, and she's been the person who then realized, no, they're not that bad because of her mentor, Archbishop Alonsus Fowl. And then she realized, after he died, she's went through that pain. And then finally she died and became undead. Even though she's not Forsaken, she's undead. It's a different kind of necromancy, but it's still necromancy. All of these things that have happened have given Calia her compassion comes from understanding. So she understands Lillian's pain. So I think they make a really good team in that aspect. And it makes sense that they would be attempting to help in Gilneas, because whilst for Lillian, it's a concrete thing. It's a pragmatic thing. It's like, we don't want to have the Scarlet Crusade on our doorstep. Better somebody that we're actually in a treaty with and can at least hope the armistice will hold than the Scarlet Crusade, who are going to just whip themselves up into a frenzy and make more attacks on the Horde. And we just reestablished ourselves in Lordaeron. We can't afford them here. That's no good. Calia is obviously seeing it more as, we can do this thing. It'll show the Gilneans that they don't have to hate and fear us. We can try and pay back our debt for what happened and move forward in a spirit of reconciliation. And both of them understands that the other one has that mindset.
Yeah,
they're not blindsided by it.
And like you said, it's very complimentary. And you can see that a little bit too. We talked about the stories that we've read that happen to have them as characters. The Vow Eternal, the little novella that came out, which was the Lothamar and Thalustra wedding. It was Voss with Calia and Derek Menethil, or not Derek Menethil, Derek Proudmoore. Yeah, sorry, I have Menethil on the brain. Who showed up to that wedding. They attended the wedding as a group. And you can kind of see exactly how things were starting to play off. Like, they are the ones that realized that Mia Greymane, the queen, had gone to the wedding instead of her husband, Gen Greymane. They had very uncomfortable glances, with Calia being the one that was okay with saying, it was nice to see Queen Mia again. She was the one that broke sort of the diplomatic silence, right? Because Voss is not going to. It doesn't serve an immediate purpose, so she wasn't going to. And Derek is still getting used to being Forsaken at this point. And probably feels a little bit of guilt towards everything that happened, even if he didn't play a direct hand in it. So it really goes to Calia, and they sort of all three of them kind of work in an interesting pattern. And we see that, and the reason we bring this up is to frame what type of person Lillian Voss is. Because during Dragonflight, there is a whole section of storyline where the Scarlet Crusade forces, led by, I think it's Forsyth, seize control of Fenris Isle to use as their staging ground to strike against the Forsaken within the ruins of Lordaeron. And it's Voss who calls upon the champions, us, to basically go in there and sort of take care of problems with Voss hot on our tail, right? And then that sort of feeds directly into here, where the Scarlet Crusade has sort of left Fenris Isle, and now they have basically taken over Gilneas, which has the wall's been destroyed at this point. It's been under siege, but they've got a pretty good foothold, and they've got the water against their back, so they have a way to retreat theoretically.
Yeah, you can always get on a boat if you have to.
Right.
That's what they did when the Lich King was sending his Death Knights after them. They had boats and they were ready to get on the things, and they did. I mean, some of them died, some of the boats were destroyed, but enough of them got on those boats that they ended up in Northrend. Granted, they were being played by a demon there, but Scarlet Crusade are always really good to for getting duped into obeying somebody. Regardless, though, yeah, it's Voss's. I keep using Batman as my example because I think it's a decent one for Voss. Voss is kind of the Forsaken's, sort of their spy master. The Alliance have spy masters. Oh bloody heck, I can't remember his name. He's dating the guy from
Matthias Shaw.
Yeah, Matthias Shaw. Matthias Shaw, is a classic example of a spy master. But the Horde, especially the Forsaken, didn't really have one up till now.
The closest one is, why can't I remember her name? The Blood Elf that had worked with
Valeria Sanguinar. Yeah.
Who kind of operated as like a free agent between the Alliance and the Horde in that capacity.
Yeah, she had contacts on both sides.
Yeah.
Less so now that Varian's dead, but there's been a role open, especially in the Forsaken, because the big part of this, I mean, as much as I feel like I'm talking about the Forsaken a lot, and people may be like, I thought this was about Gilneas.
It all matters.
The Forsaken are pretty tied up in what happened to Gilneas.
Yeah, because it is Sylvanas who led the incursion into Gilneas, who took it over, raised some of the Gilnean citizens as Forsaken, and struck down Liam, King Greymane's heir, essentially.
And when it became clear to the Forsaken that they couldn't actually win, they couldn't hold it, they destroyed it. They poisoned it so that no one could live there. And if you want to look at that and think of that as kind of a test run for what eventually happened to Undercity, you're not wrong. Sylvanas blowing up for Undercity with the plague is another example of the way she thinks about victory and defeat, or at least the way she thought about it up until the end of Shadowlands. Victory was to be achieved by any means, including Like if you had to lop off your arm to win, you did it because you could always go find another arm and stitch it back on. There's that cold, calculating essence of the way Sylvanas used to act. That was a big part of the Forsaken's motivation for action. It was like, in a lot of ways, the Forsaken didn't really have motivation to act. They were like mired in the horror of their existence, and that is something that I think we don't really talk about enough. It really isn't great to be Forsaken.
No,
and the Forsaken are the most aware of this more than anybody else. The Forsaken know I'm rotting. My brain is getting mushy. My jaw fell off again, and this is the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, like go back and read. I think it's Before the Storm.
Yep, Before the Storm. That's what I was thinking.
Before the Storm is a really great view into what it's like to be a Forsaken, why there is a Fleshworks in the Undercity, why they have to harvest body parts, because like Matt's saying, their bodies are constantly decomposing. There is no such thing as a stable Forsaken because they weren't really... The Scourge was never designed essentially to be a permanent thing. And we've talked about this before. It was meant to clear the world for invasion and then essentially fall apart. It didn't. It didn't go according to plan. And the Forsaken waking up and taking control of themselves or wresting control away from the Lich King and having their minds intact like they did, or at least as close to intact as they could, was putting them in such a weird position. You can't really die, right? I'm reminded of, there was a episode of Twilight Zone many, many years ago. I'm talking black and white episode of Twilight Zone where there was a bunch of mobsters. They killed some guy and they were going to basically bury him in a swamp. But the whole episode was through the perspective of the guy that was supposedly dead in the back of the car, who was just kind of watching everything unfold, trapped in his own thoughts, not alive, but not dead. Like he was just kind of stuck in the body. And the Forsaken sort of are in that position. So
the only difference is they can actually move around.
Right. But they have to harvest body parts even if they don't want to. They may think it's unsavory, but if their arm falls off, well, you kind of need an arm, at least one. If their jaw falls off, they still need their jaws and bits and pieces to talk. And I think going back to Calia, that's also another reason why I think Calia is such a beacon of hope for them, because she doesn't have that particular problem. And there's hope that maybe they'll be able to solve that. But,
yeah. I mean, if you look at too, that's one of the things that Sylvanas was working on, for all that she said at one point that they were just arrows in her quiver, she was trying to make it so that they didn't fall apart. Mm-hmm. She only found like certain ways to do it. One of them was literally to find a relative of the person in question and kill them, which she did for, I can't remember his name. He's Nathanos. She did it for Nathanos Blakecaller. She basically used one of his own relatives to like turn his rotting husk of a body into one that was sustaining, but it required the use of the Valkyr. In essence, it required Shadowlands level magic to do it. Now, meanwhile, Calia is animated by the light, and again, that's another form of magic. In either case, there's different ways to do necromancy. I do find it fascinating to watch the Forsaken evolve as a group. Yeah,
and I think the reason we bring this up, and again why it's important, is because that evolution sort of is important here, because as a Horde player, and I just want to do this from the Horde perspective a little bit, just going into the events that happen. Lillian Voss says that I have an alliance contact meeting with us by our boat. We're going ahead of the army to offer our raid. And Calia goes, to ensure we don't take King Greymane by surprise. His dislike of the Forsaken is well known. Watch yourself, tensions will be high. The person that meets them is Tess Greymane, princess and only living heir to the throne of Gilneas. She's the one that says, I need your help. I understand that I can't do this without you. And because Calia is there, it is sort of like two kingdoms reuniting after ages of not being able to support each other.
Yeah, the last time that these two nations were in anything like this, it was when Calia's father and Tess's father broke with each other.
Yeah.
The one where Gen says the often repeated lines, damn the Alliance and damn you. This is the last time you're going to hear from me, Tyrannus, so I hope you were listening. And it proves quite true. It is the last time they speak. They never speak again. Gen walls up. And keep in mind, Gen abandoned half his kingdom.
Yeah.
Like Silverpine, which the Forsaken now hold, wasn't Lordaeron. It was Gilneas originally.
Yep, all the way up through.
Yeah. He abandoned it because there was no good place to build a wall that didn't leave that part out. He wanted a nice narrow choke point. So he moved all the Gilneans in and he abandoned what was essentially farmland to their own devices. If you didn't want to come into the wall, then you stay out there and you're not our problem anymore. So this act, this moment of, I won't call it reconciliation exactly, but the first step on the road to reconciliation.
And it leads into a direct moment that I think is very powerful here, which is after this, you show up on the docks, and the dock is essentially you, the champion, with, at least from the Horde side, because I have not done this Alliance side, with Lillian Voss, Calia Menethil, Gen Greymane, and Mia Greymane, as you're watching the interaction between them, which starts with Gen essentially going, "What is this, Forsaken?" And Mia saying, "Calm yourself, Tess is with them. There has to be a reason." And then Gen is taken aback because he's so focused on the Forsaken being there that he didn't notice Tess was there. And he asks what she's doing and what they're doing here. And Tess says, "They're here to help us retake Gilneas." And he flips out, rightfully so. "They're the reason we were driven out. Have you forgotten?" And Mia calms him down again. "It's Calia Menethil, not some mindless scourge. Let her speak." Something that would not have happened before this. That I don't think if it was still just the regular Forsaken, if Calia was not in this role and not leading the people of the Forsaken in any capacity, this exchange never would have happened, and Gen probably would have wolfed out immediately and just gone ham on them.
Yep. I mean, and that's the thing is, from the Alliance side, the real message and the lesson here is that Tess is an adult.
Yeah.
That she's always been kind of treated like a girl, even though you saw her in Legion as member of the Uncrowned. And that's the really interesting thing here. Tess doesn't contact Calia directly. Tess contacts Lillian. Because Tess and Lillian were both part of the Uncrowned. They know each other. Mm-hmm. They have worked together. And it's that Tess is therefore, it's not, this story is not a Gen Greymane story. It's a Tess Greymane story. This is where you see Tess Greymane step up and take the position that was intended for her brother. But her brother is dead and he can't do it.
And even then, and you see that with, while it is definitely not a Gen Greymane story, and I appreciate that, he's the one that says, "You need to show me the way. What are your orders?" To Tess, to his kid, to his remaining child. "Tell me what you need us to do, and we will do it. You are in charge." And it is a very powerful moment, because think about this. Think about Gen Greymane. Think about who he has been for the last several expansions. A king displaced, a person who lost his son, a person who was almost lost his wife. Because don't forget, during the burning of Teldrassil, Mia Greymane was there and had to be essentially pulled away because she was making sure other people were getting out to survive. And I believe it's the adventurer, the champion, that goes and pulls her out. And without that, she would have died.
I had to shove her in a portal.
Yeah, and Gen would have been even more distraught, having lost that, not knowing where his daughter had been at this point too. It would have shattered him, but it's sort of like a reminder at this moment that he does still have something. And so that's what happens. And you start going through, basically clearing out ahead of the armed forces arriving on the beach as a small strike force. You, with, in my case, the aid of Lillian Voss, and I don't know if she did this for the Alliance, I assume so.
I think she's there, but Tess is the one who's doing it for the Alliance.
Well, you get both of them on mine. So
yeah, I think it's just basically they're both there, but if you're a Horde, Lillian is the one who talks to you in more, and if you're Alliance, it's Tess.
So on the Horde side, it's both. So Tess is there as the tank, and then Lillian is sort of like the assassin in the shadow. So you can call Lillian in. Tess will sit there and smack the Scarlet Crusade and go through, it's you and Tess doing the stuff, calling in Lillian to do strategic strikes from the shadows, which is really, It's an interesting dynamic, but it's one that Tess and Lillian have had already, like you said, with the Uncrowned. You go through, you clear out the Scarlet forces, and then you get to make your way through the city streets. You go through a lot of the same areas that you went through with the Worgen starting zone, and that whole storyline. You actually have to go up to where Liam's grave is at one point to find a confessor, I believe, is up there. It's either a confessor or a crusader. I can't remember which. And then you get ready for the main siege, which is where the castle is, or the manor. It's sort of a weird hybrid in between Gilneas's. It's a house, but also that's where the throne room is, but it also kind of looks like a church.
Yeah.
And you see the Scarlet Crusade have put all sorts of arcane, light-based barriers up around the place. They have siege weapons and stuff to counteract people coming in. And it's a massive assault that you have to go in, break up the weaponry, and then actually go in and crush the Crusade, going after Inquisitor Fairbell, who has basically taken up residence in the throne room of Gilneas, and is wielding the light in very, at least I thought, a very interesting way. Not only is it a weapon dealing holy fire and basically making the floor lava, but at one point she essentially turns herself into a light elemental, which was, I don't think we've seen that before, have we?
No, I mean, we've seen the void ones, but I don't think we've actually seen the light ones.
And it's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a void elemental just made out of light, which is absolutely impressive and terrifying, because that is something we haven't seen the Scarlet Crusade before, and that can mean all manner of just craziness in the future for dealings with them. But I'm going to stop talking and let you talk about anything you want to here, because it's a really interesting set of moments.
Yeah, I don't think that, for me, what's interesting is the aftermath.
Go for it.
The fact that the Gilneans managed to work side by side with the Forsaken, the fact that Gen was able to put aside his anger, and it's justifiable anger. This is one of the problems I often have with the narrative in World of Warcraft, that you're angry, but you can't let your anger rule you. You can't take action based on your anger. It's always done at a time when someone's literally just had the bad thing happen to them. Yeah,
their home has been destroyed, their child has been killed.
Jaina has her home, her city, Theramore, destroyed, and instantly Thrall is like, don't do a bad thing, and it's like, dude, let her work through this a little bit before and that's one of the things I like here is that Gen has had a decade of real time, more than really. It's been, I think, 12 years at this point since Cataclysm came out. Maybe even 13 years. But regardless, Cataclysm came out years ago. Even in game with the time slip and everything, it's been about that long. It's been about 13, 14 years. And in that time, he has managed, because he's won his victories against Sylvanas, and he's had some defeats, but he did that one really big thing of stopping her in the Storm Peaks.
Oh, absolutely huge with the Soul Cage, essentially.
Yeah. He stopped her from getting control of Aer. He stopped her from her plan A, which may have ended up why she embraced the jailer fully. But regardless, it was a victory, and it was a victory he literally stole from her. She thought she'd beaten him, and then she looked down, and he was like, "You looking for this?" Doom! Blew it on the ground. So as a result of that, he's had enough time, and he's got Mia there. Since he didn't lose Mia in Battle for Azeroth, as you pointed out, he's got Mia there. He's had enough time to grieve and to process, and finally, he still does not like the Forsaken, and he's clear about it. He's up front. I don't think Gangrene knows how to lie about how he feels about something.
No, he is very much the, I don't want to say alpha wolf, but he's very in tune with his feelings otherwise.
Yeah.
And
he will tell you.
Yeah. And he's not afraid to say.
Tell you. No, he is not. So you get that guy, and he still is that guy, but he's willing to step back and let other people make these decisions, because he's giving them time, and he's giving them a chance to prove him wrong, because he's willing to accept that. Just let me get through, and then I'll shut up.
Yeah.
And because here, the moment we get here is where Tess literally becomes Queen of Gilneas. He tells her, "It's you. You're queen now.
It should have always been you.
Yeah. He abdicates for her. And there's some back and forth. Tess doesn't want to do it at first. And he's like, he basically makes the point that he spent all these years mourning Liam instead of, understanding what he still had. And I think that that's kind of like it sums up what you were talking about with Calia and Lillian.
Mm-hmm.
It's that mirror of that, is that, yes, you lost something. Yes, you mourn. Yes, you're in pain, but you can't just forget what you do still have. And it's a nice moment because it wouldn't have happened without the Forsaken. They couldn't have taken Gilneas back without them. Yeah. They didn't have the Force to do it.
And I think there's another element too here that I think is at play, and I think has also helped his character. And Gen is one of those characters where when we first were introduced to him, I could not stand him. I thought he was written very boorishly. It was sort of boring and tropey, and I didn't really care for him. As time has gone on, the character has developed and grown into something much more complex and something much more interesting to me. And I think part of that with his characterization in this moment is that he's sort of been having to advise and help lead the Alliance for a number of years now, something his character never wanted to do. He didn't want anything to do with the Alliance. He wanted to be away from it. He didn't want to be part of their petty squabbles or any of their wars that they're fighting. And he's been in the thick of it for so long now, because he hasn't had a choice. It's been thrust upon him, but it's also sort of shifted because once again, he's had to look at citizens who aren't able to turn into Worgen. He has to take care of the farmers and make sure that the military is fed and taken care of, which are mostly conscripted farmers and people anyway. Make sure that infrastructure is running in the face of war and adversity and everything else that's happening. And it sort of, I think, gave him something that he hadn't had for a long time behind his wall, which was an actual people to care about and govern and be responsible for. And in this moment, he realizes that while he has changed, he can't do it anymore, not like he used to. And to be fair, he doesn't really want to. Tess is the better choice. She sees the world for what it can be, something he still struggles with. He can deal with problems and things that are on his plate and deal with immediate things, but almost like, I don't want to say his hope is gone, but a lot of that hopeful looking to the future isn't necessarily his purview anymore.
It comes down to a very simple thing. You get to a point, and it's one of the things I've actually liked. I've always liked Gen, actually. I even though I thought he was a real jerk, I've liked him as he was being a real jerk because I understood why he was being a real jerk. When he started, all the way back during like the end of the Second War, his main goal was always his people because he was responsible for them. They were his people, and he was going to take care of them because that was his task. Being a king wasn't, for Gilneans, being a king wasn't something that you got to like strut around and feel happy about. It was a duty, and at times a grim one. So he did the things he thought were necessary in order to protect his people, and it didn't work out. Obviously, if you look at the whole thing with the Worgen and so forth, things got bad, but they never got bad because he shirked his duty. And even after Liam died, and Liam was the same way. Liam threw himself in front of Sylvanas' arrow because he believed it was his duty to protect his father. And I think a lot of this, Gen's transformation, a lot of it has to do with Anduin. And I
would agree.
Not in the sense of Anduin showed me hope. Just Anduin wasn't his son, but he was a son. He was somebody's child. He was put into the position that Liam would have been put into had he lived, of being king of a country that, was, so Stormwind is just as hard on its kings as Gilneas ever was. And so by being there for Anduin, by being, an example, by honoring the thing that Varian said to him when we watched him die, he could in some small way heal up from what he'd been through. But you never just regenerate, those parts of your body, those parts of your being are gone. Mm-hmm. When Liam died, it took something from him. Well,
I want to go to this part because I think this is actually really important to what you're saying. Right after he names Tess now Queen of Gilneas, he disappears, right? He wanders off. And when Tess goes looking for him, Mia and Tess kind of know exactly where he is and ask you to go check on him. And he's at Liam's grave. And I want to just kind of read what he says here, because I think it's really important. And I don't know about you, but it hit me in the feels. And it says, I don't know if you would recognize me, Liam. All these years, the lessons I have learned, the Alliance has always offered an outstretched hand. There are days it feels right and days I wonder, what if I had not built that wall? Would Lordaeron still stand? Would you still be? Ah, but listen to me. The ruminations of an old man. You did not live long enough to regret as I do. Your sister will lead the kingdom now. No one can be more proud of her than your mother and I, except perhaps you. Rest well, my son. Gilneas is in the best of hands. And it's like you're saying, you can't really regenerate the pieces of you that are broken. Not that way. But
yeah, you're not that person anymore.
And he says
the things that wound you. Yeah, exactly. The things that wound you change you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were the things that you had not happened to you before. They weren't part of who you were. Your pain is part of who you are. You learn lessons from it.
Yeah,
even if you don't want to.
I used to say something years ago, and I used to, scars are tattooed memories, right? They're permanent reminders of things you've been through. They'll generally always be a part of you, and they'll always have a certain memory associated with you. And that wound will heal and scar over, but it will always mark you. And that's kind of what happens with Gen. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it constantly drags him down. And as a matter of fact, it just forced him to sort of evolve. Like you said, it changes him. It changes everybody.
When you have something horrible happen, and we see that with a lot of World of Warcraft characters, really, when you go through that experience, there is no way to go back to before you had that experience, because you are the person who had that experience now. And everything you do going forward will be, I don't want to say tainted, but it will be the person you were, and the fact that you aren't that person anymore will be part of you going forward as you become someone else. And that will continue throughout your life. Gen here, this is the first time that Gen here has actually let himself, I don't want to say relax, but I can't think of a different word.
Decompress.
It's like he finally gets to stop and turn to like his dead son and say, the farewell that he didn't get to say to him, because literally his son died and they had to evacuate the kingdom, and immediately their boats got attacked and almost destroyed, and he had to find Mia and she almost drowned. And then they finally got to, Teldrassil, and they barely got a chance to sink in any roots there before he was off in Stormwind, trying to, get the Alliance back in shape for something. And then Teldrassil got destroyed and his wife almost dies. Just thing after thing. And this is the first time in a while he's been able to just sit down in Gilneas, in his home, and just let out the breath he'd been holding for 10 years. And that's that moment. I don't want to say he's relaxed, and I don't want to say he finally just accepts that he's an old man, because he knew he was an old man.
No, but I think breathing is the right analogy.
Yeah. There's that moment of, okay. It's like that feeling when you get to sit for the first time in hours after having to be on your feet and moving around all day. And I think everybody's felt that. It's not even a relief or a decompression. It's this moment of okay, I can reset. I can start looking at things again. I can let myself feel what I have been suppressing all this time, because I couldn't dare to allow myself to feel it, because I had to keep moving.
Yeah,
and that's what we get here.
Well, and we get a little bit more too, which I think is really important, because not only does he get this moment of reconciliation, or this moment of closure, because that's really what it is. He knows that his people are going to be in good hands by putting Tess in charge of them, that Gilneas will be able to rebuild, and that maybe in the future we'll see that wall won't actually be rebuilt. It'll be torn down, and that maybe they'll reclaim the Fenris Isles fully and part of Silverpine, and live in harmony with the Forsaken that are really right next door to them at this point, because Calia is there and they know Calia. Calia is a friend of Tess. But we also hear that he's not done. He's not just going to go into obscurity. He's not just going to retire, right? He's going to go back and advise the king of Lordaeron, or Stormwind. He's going to try to be there for Anduin in a way that he couldn't be there for his own son. And I think that's kind of important because he's still going to be present. He's still going to be trying to have an impact on the world. And if not for anything else, at that point, he's a diplomat to the Alliance, right? He's there full time. He's then tying Gilneas back to the Alliance fully, completely, and with certainty. They have their homeland back. They have the land of their people. Their people can now start their lives again. They can be a kingdom again, and they can be part of the Alliance again. Just like the Proudmoors. Just like Kultiris came back into the fold. And it's the first time in how many years since all the human kingdoms were more or less unified?
Yeah, it's been since the end of the Second War. That's the last time that they were. So, yeah. I mean...
And it's refreshing because it's a bittersweet ending to the Worgen story, and I'm really curious how Primary Alliance players feel about it. Because
I think that the decision to have him step aside for Tess is the best decision they could have made for him.
Oh, I agree.
And the reason, as an Alliance player, the reason I think that is a lot of Horde players view Gen as an inflexible bigot who just hates the Horde and is not reasonable about himself and doesn't think about what his hatred is. This entire thing shows that that's not the case. Whilst he certainly is upfront with hating the Forsaken and the Horde, he's not mindless about it. He's not a wild animal that's going to just bite no matter what you do. He is able to now step back and let Tess bring in her plan, which her plan directly involves using the Forsaken as allies. It's something that he would never have been able to do. He could never have reached across to them.
Even now, like even at this current point, even knowing he needs their help, he wouldn't.
Yeah, he couldn't do it. It's not even that he wouldn't do it. He couldn't. And that's the thing is, there is that in him now, that ability to recognize his limitations.
Yeah, which
he realizes
important.
Yeah, it's very important. And also it's the ability for both sides to recognize their culpability in this. The Forsaken, by going to Gilneas' aid, are saying, yes, we did this. And that is the beginning of an actual rapprochement between peoples, is the ability to look what you've done square in the face. Yeah, that's why this is so good for both Gen and the Worgen, and for Calia and Lillian and the Forsaken, is both of them can say, you know what? Forget for a moment the justifications. Forget the excuses. We did this.
Yeah, and
we're going to undo it. We are going to help you. And it doesn't pay back a debt. It doesn't fix the problems that have caused the bad feelings between them, but it is something.
We talked about this a while ago, and it's something we bring up rather frequently whenever we talk about storytelling and how do you move forward without just having all-out animosity between both factions. And this is really a good point. There can still be tension. There can still be events that happen, because what moving forward doesn't necessarily erase everything that happened before it. It's the recognizing of taking ownership of the things that you did and trying to not, again, like try to build new bridges, not necessarily just mend the fences that were there and pretend it never happened, right? Like you have, like you said, Calia being that bridge with Tess to sort of work between the two of them. And we saw some of that as well in Seeds of Renewal when Belamath was sort of born again, and the Horde having a sort of a hand in helping that along, and some of them saying, yeah, we kind of messed up and this is the least we can do. Right.
And for that matter, the fact that sometimes people can only drop something when there is a sign that it's understood why they feel that way.
Yes.
Like, I think that for Tyrande, like, I mean, I forget who said it, but like one of the deaths, the previously Night Elf Dark Hunters, I keep wanting to call them Shadow Hunters, but that's not the right word. One of the ones that Sylvanas raised.
Delaran?
Not Delaran. No, it is Delaran. Delaran
Yep.
Silvermoon, yeah. She says that Tyrande spoke very politely to her. Imagine the Tyrande from Shadowlands speaking politely to her. That would not have happened. But not only has Tyrande had time to deal with the emotion, to process it, she's got an example of a reason to do so.
And you get to the further sort of olive branch there too, because one of the other comments is that the Dark Rangers are free in Belemeth. They're free to come and stay. Yeah,
she straight up tells them, if you want to be here, you can be here. This is a place for all of us. And she's basically inviting the Nightborn. She's inviting the Blood Elves.
Yeah, Lorthamar is there. Tharissia is there.
They're part of the problem. If you think about it, they helped burn down Darnassus, but Teldrassil. But that's not. We don't forget it. We know it happened, but we also know what happened here, and we also know you can forgive somebody for something without, but in order to forgive them, in order to even start forgiving them, they have to actually show repentance. And that's what we're getting. We're getting both sides of that.
And the interesting thing is, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it opens up the door for so much more too, especially in that moment. And we see it with Gilneas and we see it with Belemeth. Belemeth is not necessarily the Night Elf capital. It's the elf capital at this point. It's for all of them, because one of the things Tron talks about is bringing life back to all of the other places. They'll still have Hyjal. When it's time for Teldrassil to bloom again, they'll be there. They're talking about all the different elven cities. We might get a reclaiming of Silvermoon City at this point, which could potentially be massive. Repairing of that scarred damage that was done by the Scourge. We can see maybe some reconciliation there as well. The reclaiming of Gilneas sort of sets the precedence for moving forward in the story.
And also, one of the things it does is, and I don't want to get too optimistic here. I don't want to sound like, it means, but I will say this. If you ever thought of a future where the factions don't matter, this is how you narratively build it, with steps. You don't just throw open the gates and say, we just love each other now. No, you do concrete things in the story. You do Belemeth, you do this, that set the tone.
Let's talk about the whole thing of Dragonflight with the reunification of the dragons. That's a theme that was present there as well. What happened throughout the entire course of the story between the incarnates, the essentially the elemental dragons, we'll call them, and the Dragonflights. How do we end it? We end it with a peace for all dragons. We end it with Thaldraszus being a capital for all of them. All of them are, the Nether Drakes are welcome back. The Storm Drakes are welcome back. All of the disparate.
It's telling that they invited them.
Yes.
They even said, both Viranoth and Rathian said at one point, you're dragons. This is for dragons. You have a right to be here. And think about what that means for the Netherwing, who have never really felt accepted.
No, they haven't.
And the one time they tried to, Malagos just used them. He used them to figure out, to basically make himself sane, or at least as sane as he got. And when they then later on, Deathwing uses them. So they didn't have a great experience. And a lot of this stuff is very thematically similar. I think that we're reaching a point where we have set up a new status quo that is in its infancy. And I don't think you should just think that in the War Within, boom, we're going to all be friends and pals now.
No.
That's not where we're going. What we're going is, in the War Within, we will see the next steps along this road and the problems that arise and the disappointments that happen, because that's part of the thing. But it's moving past this stage of things, the past several expansions. This is really where that story ends. If you start with, let's say you start with Cataclysm, because Cataclysm really ended the previous, up to Wrath of the Lich King. That was one cohesive story that, although at the time we didn't know it. You go from Cataclysm, then you hit Mists and Wrath. Mists and bloody hell! Why can't I remember the name of the expansion where we go to Second Draenor? Warlords of Draenor.
Warlords of Draenor. Man.
Yeah. Those three expansions are basically, the old world is changing. What is it changing into?
And I think it's a representation of the maturity of the storytelling happening. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at that, we're now finally able to look back at everything from Legion to now and realize, okay, Legion was basically, for lack of a better word, Legion was almost a cyclical repeat, because there's that whole idea of the cycle, the cycle must be broken, so forth. That we've all heard the whispers of Il'gynoth and so forth. There's this moment where you realize that Legion had to happen because it had to finally end the threat of the Legion so that Azeroth could look at what it was.
Yeah.
And Battle for Azeroth is Azeroth deciding, no, we're the same thing we always were. Kill, kill, kill. And then you get to the end of it and like, wait a minute, this is absolutely a terrible idea. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's the realization we can't do this anymore. This is not sustainable.
Yeah, and that's what Shadowlands is all about. Shadowlands is all about mourning. It's about looking at the things you've lost, looking at what has been taken from you, looking at what will happen if you keep trying to fight the same wars over and over again. You just end up like this. You end up stagnant, and this guy wants to smash all of existence because he can't. The jailer can't see the beauty in existence. He can't understand that it should exist, and so he's just going to smash it all and try again, and that never works. We've seen that. We just went through it multiple times on Azeroth. You can't just smash it. You have to actually fix it. And so this expansion has been the fixing it expansion. The dragons working to fix themselves and coming up with a way to do it that we didn't necessarily expect. I think some of us did pretty much expect that at least some of the incarnates were going to come over. The whole Veranoth thing, once they introduced Veranoth and were really serious about it, we all were like, oh, wait a minute, Veranoth's actually sane. This could work. And so now we get Belemeth as part of that. The dragons not just fixing their own problems, but fixing Azeroth's problems, which is what they're supposed to do. It's supposed to be their role, and being accepted not by the Titan, not by beings from elsewhere that appointed themselves, but by the world itself saying, yes, you helped me, I accept you. Which then moves into what Belemeth itself is, and is why Gilneas makes sense now. Because while Gilneas has been, it's not really directly related, it's like the spirit of this moment changes the world, and it changes the hearts of the people in it in a way that allows them to do what they couldn't do before. Because they can work together now. They can actually work together, not just band together at a moment of absolute danger, and then maybe the second is over, like, okay, we're back to hating each other. They can actually reach that moment where they work together, and at the end, they don't immediately push each other away and go, they just kind of go, thanks, you're welcome. We owed you, and you can go, let's just be happy we got this done, and they can then talk to each other, and that's something we've not had ever in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and I think looping it back to Gilneas, it's just more representation of that. It's more representation of that maturity, of that that moving forward, of having that ability to be more complex in the storytelling, still have your tensions, still have those old scars present, but being able to move forward and tell the storytelling in a new way. One of the other things that I think is really exciting, especially in the later storytelling here at the end of Dragonflight.
Are you going to mention the Sylvanas thing?
Go for it.
Sylvanas contacts Horde players who were her champions, like the ones that were loyal to her. She straight up contacts them, and it's like, you know what? I've been doing this whole thing down here this whole time. I've been looking for Nathanos, although I'm not going to say his name, but we all know that's who I'm looking for. I'm not coming back. I hear that that the Desolate Council is reformed, and quite frankly, good. You guys, it's good that you're going forth and taking care of yourselves. I don't think I'm ever going to rule there again. That's not my role. But if I ever do manage to finish my task here, I will always think of myself as one of them. You were never just arrows in my quiver. You were my people. And it's just a really good moment. Because it doesn't change Sylvanas' crimes, but
it's more of that maturity.
Yeah, it's realizing that Sylvanas' actions were motivated in a large part by her literal emptiness.
Yeah, and it's
by the thing that she had lost.
it's a theme that we saw echoed in her, that we saw echoed across everybody, even Taronda at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is
again, yeah,
which is this: I care so much about my people that I will do anything to help them, even if it is a terrible decision. And sometimes you can be blinded by that, like taking on the aspect of the Night Warrior, or Gen leading his people into destruction, potentially, again. There's all these little tiny moments, but one of the things that I was going to say is this also feeds into my final thought, which is one of the themes we've been seeing, especially throughout Dragonflight. We saw it in Shadowlands as well. Is that there is a sort of, I don't want to say a passing of the torch, but I can't think of another way to phrase it. It's the old guard is still around, but their roles, they're accepting that they're not the adventurer anymore. They'll still be around to help and lend support, but it really is shifting focus. It's a lot like, it's going to sound like a weird analogy, but some people will understand what I'm saying. It's like when The Simpsons shifted focus from Bart to Homer. Like, it was a complete difference in sort of the tone and identity of that show. It's the same thing here. It's the characters like Thrall and Taronda and Malfurion, and, Varian and all these other ones that were so present for so long and were driving forces behind the story for such a long period of time and central to it, are starting to retire or take a step back and leave a younger generation of characters in charge, whether it's us or Tess Greymane or Calia Menethil. You have these folks, even Lothamar, who never really had a chance in the sun until recently.
Yeah.
And you're having these younger, fresher perspectives that aren't necessarily rooted in the same trauma that all of these other legends had to go through, right? Because think about that. Thrall has his own set of trauma that has led him to do some very questionable decisions. So did Sylvanas. So did Taronda and Malfurion. Heck, there's a whole book on Illidan and him dealing with that. You have again, Greymane is another great example of it, but you have all these faction leaders that are just, they've done their time and they're earning their rest, or at least their reward. You have Mechatork, who's reunited all of the gnomes, like the mecha gnomes, the regular gnomes. They're all sort of coming together again. He got what he wanted. He got what the gnomes have always wanted. There's a home now. You have the trolls who have, solidified under, their current banners. You have the orcs sort of coming to peace with things. You have the reunited dwarven clans under one roof again, with a potential future for full reintegration in a very near future here, potentially, depending on how many years ahead the story jumps in the next expansion.
And, oddly enough, the thing you mentioned briefly during this is a real interesting thing to talk about. Right now, we have Gilneas, Colteris, in a way, Lordaeron, and Stormwind. And the Alliance claimed the Arathi Highlands.
Yep. This
is a big chunk. There's multiple different kinds of different human kingdoms coming together. And that means that humans, when we went into World of Warcraft, one of the things that they made a point of pointing out was that Stormwind was essentially the last human kingdom.
And it's not the case anymore.
Yeah. Humans are now, united in the Alliance over multiple kingdoms. Sure, some of them are werewolves now. Some of them are dead now. But they're still part of that tradition. They're still part of that original alliance. And it almost looks like, you can imagine a future where you talk a lot about the pan-elven nature of Belemeth, but imagine the twin kingdoms of Gilneas and Lordaeron could essentially create a future where there's a human polity, a place where all humans go, and all humans includes Worgen and Forsaken. And in time, since we've seen that with the dwarves, and we've seen that now with the elves, and we're seeing that now with humans, we could be looking at a future where literally there's a place where everybody goes. There's a place where it's like a pan-Azerothian policy. And that's just fascinating to look at the early stages of it. And we may never see it get any further, but we now finally could imagine it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't change that this is a world of conflict and a world of war, but it doesn't mean you necessarily have to keep fighting the same war over and over again either.
Agreed. But I think that's going to do it for us. We could have probably gone even further, but hopefully you enjoyed the recapping of that, why it's important to the story moving forward, what it represents with the recapturing of the reclaiming of Gilneas, and as well as a little bit of the history of Lillian Voss, which I think is going to be important moving forward. Because
I'll be up front. We should probably do a Lillian Voss show.
We probably should, and very well we may. But for right now, I do want to thank everybody because Blizzard Watch is made possible due to your generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast signing community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy benefits like early access to the podcast, better chance at having your question answered on our podcast with a Q&A ads, free site experience. I had intended to try to get to some questions today. Wishful thinking on my part.
I don't know why you even thought you could.
Listen, I had to try. But if you do have questions for this or any of our podcasts, be sure to send those in. It's podcast@blizzardwatch.com. If you want to send us an email, specify the show in the subject line, as well as any special pronunciations for your name in the content of the email. If you want to hit us up on Discord, we do have our Q&A podcast questions channel, which is open for everybody. And for our Patreon subscribers, we have the Patreon Q&A podcast questions channel where we give you first billing. If there's a topic that maybe we talked about in this episode that you want us to go further into depth on or speculate on, let us know. Send those in as well. We're more than happy to consider those and make those happen. But I do want to thank you all for joining us. We'll be back next week.